Time Grand Slam champion was playing in her first tournament since March of 2024. Venus accepted a wildcard invitation to play at the Cincinnati Open, which begins August 5th. When Venus beat Peyton Stearns Tuesday in the first round of the DC Open, she became the second oldest woman to win a singles match. The LA Sparks have their first 4-game winning streak in the WNBA in 2 years. They beat the Connecticut Sun 101-86, 30 points and 6 assists for Sparks guard Kelsey Plum. The Sparks are in New York Saturday to play the Liberty, the defending WNBA champs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Communism, Prince says, is just a word, but if the government is turned over, it'll be the only word that's heard. That's the theme song, the opening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr., and in this very special hour, Dr. Ted Williams, an educator, actor, and author who teaches political science at the City Colleges of Chicago, a graduate of University of Chicago, Rutgers University, and Northern Seminary. His acting credits include NBC's Chicago PD, Showtime's The Chi, various films, plays, and commercials for companies including Empire Carpet, Cheerios, and Subway. Williams is the former host of WYCC PBS Television's The Professors, author of the book The Way Out, Christianity, Politics, and the Future of the African American Community, and creator of the musical theater production 1619, The Journey of a People. He was a previous candidate for the City of Chicago City Council and currently serves on the Illinois Reparations Commission. He and his wife, Rosalind, have 3 children. Dr. Williams will be here shortly on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And one of the things I want to talk with him about is just how messy this Epstein thing is becoming. Why? Because the president, whose name has been mentioned in the files, now has the second most powerful member of the Department of Justice meeting with a convicted criminal on a second day, privately, with counsel. And that is unprecedented. Can you imagine that the DOJ, the hand-picked attorney general, and the hand-picked second in command of the Department of Justice are actually meeting with an individual criminal defendant? The 2.5 million people who are in federal prisons across this country, where the president of the United States has been named in documents that could show his involvement with a pedophile is now meeting with the criminal defendant. Unheard of. That a criminal defendant has such leverage or potential leverage on what is released by the Department of Justice, that the Department of Justice wants to meet with her privately. This is the president who believes in deals. Make a deal. Let's make a deal. Well, the deals that seem to be made are only when his behind is on the table, wide open before the public. Deeply troubling in terms of our system of justice. I can't begin to tell you how unprecedented it is that the second in command and the Attorney General of the United States have spent the better part of 2 weeks telling us that there's nothing to see here, that this is just a fluff burger, that there are no clients on Jeffrey Epstein's list, and yet Miss Maxwell is doing time as a co-conspirator with Jeffrey Epstein, who is now deceased, for child sex trafficking. It has MAGA in a complete uproar, and the Congress of the United States in a complete uproar. They don't want to go on record subpoenaing the files from the Department of Justice, demanding the full release of all names and associates of Jeffrey Epstein, whose names have been mentioned in thousands of documents, because MAGA world wants to get to the bottom of pedophilia. Now, they don't have a problem with getting to the bottom of it when it has Democratic names involved. But there seem to be other names that are personal to the President of the United States, including but not limited to his own. We've seen the pictures. He says now he does not know Jeffrey Epstein. He says he's never spent time with Jeffrey Epstein, but we are being told not to believe what we see with our own eyes. The consequences of this are so extraordinary that Democrats and Republicans are finding space for bipartisanship, not on the big ugly bill, not on saving Medicare for the rest of us, not on saving Medicaid for the poor and the least of these amongst us, not repairing our schools, fixing our infrastructure, not even on grotesque tax breaks for the very wealthy. They've all come together agreeing that what took place in the world of Jeffrey Epstein is so heinous that it must be brought to the attention of the American people, and the President of the United States is doing everything he can to call it a big nothing burger. Not a single pundit on CNN or MSNBC or on Fox News are buying it. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We're going to talk in this hour about a number of issues, but this will be first and foremost when Dr. Ted Williams comes forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Let's talk about it. Friday and Fat Meat Fridays with none other than our regular host on Fridays, Miss Gina Towns, who will be joining us in the second hour, unless, of course, she decides to pop in the first hour. Our very special guest in this hour is Dr. Ted Williams, actor, teacher, preacher, author, thinker, philosopher. And I just figured out, and I'm clearer now than I've ever should have been, that you actually should have been elected to the city council and or whatever position you run for in the future, Ted. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I thank you, my brother. We'll have that conversation offline because I know we got other folks thinking about some offices here, so we'll have that conversation. We'll do that later. So.
Ted, welcome to the show. Ted, I've been asking, and I raised this question before the show today about the deflection, about why MAGA is so divided over this question of Jeffrey Epstein. It is roiling Washington, D.C. It is creating some unusual alliances between Democrats and Republicans who want to know more information, while the President of the United States and Attorney General Bondi keep calling it one big nothing burger. At this hour, Ted, the second in command of the Department of Justice, is meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, and that doesn't sound like a big nothing burger to me. Ted.
Yeah, well, the thing is that we're talking to this woman. You would think that they would have talked to her first. This is, you would think she'd been the first witness that you would have called in this situation. But brother, as you know very well, my parents used to always tell me, if you have nothing that you've done wrong, you don't have any reason to hide it. If you have nothing that you've done wrong, then you should be let all of the information out. And we know this president has been morally compromised in myriad ways. And this is just another example of how this administration does not want this information out. We don't know for sure what Donald Trump ultimately did, but we know that he was very close to Mr. Epstein, engaged in some of this. And if he really believes that he's innocent and his administration does let the information out. Now, MAGA, as you realize, they peddle in conspiracy theory. And so this conspiracy theory around Epstein really kind of started, under the Biden administration. They were talking about it. And now that their royal leader could potentially be convicted in this way, many of them who are such purists, and that's the thing, as you know politically, my brother, the extremists are the extremists, the purists are the purists. They don't really care about who it is. This is going to tear MAGA apart. And my brother, I'm going to grab me some popcorn because I am here for it.
I can only, I love the way you said that. I can only think that most of us with a conscience, and I am not suggesting at all that this idea of pedophilia or trafficking in child sex labor is excusable. It is an unforgivable sin as far as I'm concerned. The lives that are at stake, the lives that have been devastated by it, it is what it is. And it's tragic. But it seems to me that this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. not the people who are being kicked off of dialysis, not the people who are being kicked off of Medicaid, not the people in the big, better bill who are losing their jobs at the federal government. Literally hundreds of thousands of people unable to make their mortgages as a result of their expectations of having employment. The impact of AI, no, that's not what's going to bring the big emperor down. It is chilling, hanging with Jeffrey Epstein, possibly on the Lolita Express at a little island and at a number of parties where, well, they just can't get right.
Well, here's the deal. So MAGA hates the establishment. And what Donald Trump did was he rode their hatred for the establishment on into the White House twice. But the establishment, whether it be on the left, they tend to hate sort of big business. On the right, they tend to hate big government. The ultimate truth is that Epstein kind of represents the establishment at its finest, financially, otherwise, in its connections. So he's an easy villain for MAGA. They would love to be able to have taken him down and all of the people around him, and they would love for this to have been Bill Clinton, but it's not. And so because it is Donald Trump, and because ultimately MAGA is a bit uncontrollable, Trump was able to ride their hatred ultimately to what he is doing now. And I think hatred is the thing that unites them. But my brother, we've watched enough superhero movies. We've watched enough cartoons, read enough Greek mythology, etc., to know that the villains don't do too well partnered up together. They tend to like each other for a moment, but their hatred and their ego ultimately gets them. And that's what is going on now. Also, I want to say this from a theological perspective, because I love talking to you, because you are able to navigate the political space, navigate the theological space, navigate the political space in an ideological way and in an on the ground practical way in the history. I love talking to you about this. I want to talk about selective morality, because ultimately it is very interesting to me, to your point, that this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. What is it? I was thinking about two deaths this week. Malcolm Jamal Warner, who we were connected to in our family, and have been really heartbroken this week with his loss. And then thinking about Hulk Hogan's loss, and thinking about Hulk Hogan specifically around his racist history. And I realized that Americans have a very weird sense of morality. They're willing to forgive a racist, but they were not necessarily willing to forgive an adulterer who got caught at the Coldplay concert last week in front of the world. And so I also think about American morality and go, well, what is the line? Why is, Hulk Hogan's sin less critical than this gentleman's sin, and what isn't? Why are we all over Diddy and all these other folks, but you're not over Trump in this way? Why are we not going after him? And what I see in this, my brother, is that blessedly, the one thing I will say about America, as morally challenged as it may be, at least I believe we're uniting around the idea that pedophilia is wrong. And that, my brother, in a world where you see so much selective morality, is actually, for me, a sign of encouragement.
Ted, let's hang around selective morality for a moment, because there are factors in why morality can be viewed and seen legitimately as selective, right? So we see Colin Kaepernick take a knee, even though African Americans are largely responsible for a number of stars placed on the flag that Betsy Ross first designed during the American Revolution. 2 states, one free, one slave, and then ultimately California, Nebraska, and then ultimately 11 stars decide they no longer want to be part of the flag. The Civil War. Colin Kaepernick, against that backdrop, takes a knee. But when the former quarterback of the New England Patriots took a knee for premature births or abortion or life, the same person who took a knee during those Star-Spangled Banners, there was no criticism of his right to kneel before the flag, claiming that he was concerned and feared for his country. When I take a knee and fear for my country, there's selective morality. In that moment, that's the only thing that separates the two is race. One might take a step or a flag or a knee for LGBTQ rights. That's their business. It's our business. It's what our nation, equality for all persons, represents. But then on the other hand, when they stand up for their rights, we stand in judgment. Again, selective morality. Build out selective morality for us.
Yeah, I love the historic examples that you've used. And I think that selective morality is intrinsically connected to the identity of what it means to be an American. And I think here we are, 406 years after the first 20 enslaved Africans arrived on the shores of Point Comfort, Virginia, August 20th, 1619. We have still not gained the status of being Americans. We have still not gained the idea that when you think about what America means and who America is, that you would see my face or you would see your face. We are still, as Dr. King talked about, the idea that you cannot have a first-class nation with second-class citizens. We're still second-class citizens in that way. Even though many people say, well, look at how good you have it here, African-Americans, you're able to do this, that, and that. But we're still second-class citizens in this society, which Malcolm Jamal Warner talked about in a lot of his poetic work. People looked at him and go, well, man, you were famous. You're on the Cosby Show. You're this. He said, yeah, but I am still a Black man in America, and I understand what it means to have second-class citizenship in that way. So what we see, my brother, this morality question and this selective morality is, I have a friend that said to me that we judge other people by their actions and we judge ourselves by our intentions. We judge other people by their actions. We judge ourselves by our intentions. So we are oftentimes able to give ourselves and people that look like us the benefit of the doubt when it comes to morality. But we don't do that for others. And we've been othered. Latinos have been othered. The LGBTQ community has been othered. Immigrants have been othered. People that have disabilities have been othered. And as long as there is an othering of large swaths of the American economy, we will have a double standard when it comes to morality. You and I will not be able to get away with the things that other people have. You know well, I know well in my life. And that, my friends, is something as we celebrate the 250-year anniversary of this country next year. If we want to make it another 250 years or beyond, we will have to redefine our understanding of what it truly means to be an American citizen. Colin Kaepernick is as patriotic as anybody else in this country because he took a knee to say that he wants his country to live by that Constitution, live by that declaration. And until the American people see this, until we understand that we are stronger together than we are apart, this country, as Abraham Lincoln said, and the Bible said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. We will not stand unless we get this right. And that's the biggest danger in this president. And I pray to God that our next president, our next Congress will understand and undo the damage that he has done and continue to do that has been tearing this country apart.
Let me press that a little bit forward. So he pivots in the middle of this crisis to the arrest and the call for investigations of President Barack Obama. Your thoughts on that pivot, Ted?
Well, as you and I both know, my brother, when I first heard that Donald Trump was running for office way back in 2015, I thought it was a joke. I never took him seriously. And he continues now, having been in the spotlight in this way for over a decade now, he continues to remind me of why I did not take him seriously to begin with. Here you are in the middle of not only your policies that you've laid out and what you believe to be very critical to the country, this bill that you've put forward, the tariff policies that you've put forward, the major cuts, you ought to be pressing into these issues. Yet because of your moral failings, as we've seen throughout his life, they have come back to bite him, right? You can't get away from your past. And so what he has done is, as he's always done in his career, he picks fights with people so that he can get the attention away from the things that would make him look to be truly who he is. President Obama, the idea that President Obama in some way, shape, or form manipulated the election through this conversation around the Russian collusion. We know there was collusion with Russia. Donald Trump admitted it himself when he was running for office. If you remember his words, Russia, if you're listening, go find these things out. Russia, if you go find these things out about Hillary Clinton. So this is not a secret to anyone. And anyone who is serious, whether you are Republican or Democrat, by the way, if you are a serious person, you will see this for what it is. Release the list. Show us who was on that list. Why are we talking about Obama right now? This is deflection at its finest, and we have to be steadfast in working against it.
Ted, about 3 minutes before we come forward, is there hope for bipartisanship? I hate that it's around the idea of the moral failings of the president and the corrupt attitude and approach by the Department of Justice. Mm-hmm. But it seems that Democrats and Republicans have found some kind of common ground on this question of, as you stated, pedophilia, sex trafficking, as a kind of standard beneath which no American should fall.
Well, I also think it's going to be impossible for them to justify this to their constituencies. And you, once again, have been in Congress. You understand that. I mean, part of this is their own moral compass. And a lot of it has to do with them making sure that when it's all said and done, that they can get reelected themselves and make sure that they are looking a certain way to the public. I'm for bipartisanship, however it looks, particularly around this question. And so I am excited, right, about the idea, for many of us who've been watching this man for a decade, we're like, what is the floor? Where is the bar? What is it? We thought when he said, let's grab him by the you-know-what, that was the floor. We thought when he said, Russia, are you listening? That was the floor. We thought when, you go down the list, right, of all the things that he has done. And I'm like, is this what it's taken for 10 years? Hey, it's okay. I'm here for it, right? We are spiritual people, so that, the old idea of old folks should say trouble don't last always. We got to persevere. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning, my brother. I'm like, man, this has been a long rainstorm that we've been in waiting for this guy to get hit. So let's go ahead and let's press it. And those midterms are coming. And I think that is what is most significant around this, because if we can get this Congress back, then we can change the dynamic of what has been going on the last 6 months, which feels like 6 years.
I know we're going to talk about this when we come forward, and I'm going to try and convince our executive producer to join us. She is clearly enjoying herself in the background here of this conversation. But I think it interesting when we talk about the midterms that all of the press that I've seen this week suggests that Democrats still are not the overwhelming beneficiary of the president's moral collapse, that we're still not leading in the polling that suggests we are the alternative. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Ted Williams.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is pushing back on the Department of Justice lawsuit over New York City's sanctuary policies.
We should not harm innocent migrants and asylum seekers and undocumented people in the city.
He says he supports protecting migrants, but wants the city council to reconsider parts of the law, especially when it comes to violent offenders. A fifth woman is accusing Smokey Robinson of sexual battery, according to TMZ. The 85-year-old Motown legend is already facing a $50 million lawsuit from 4 women. His attorney says more claims are no surprise and part of being a celebrity. And the Department of Justice is launching a strike force to investigate Obama-era officials over the 2016 election. The White House accuses Obama of trying to sabotage President Trump, while Obama's team calls the claims outrageous and a distraction. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is GBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey man, what's up? What's that station you listening to? Oh, man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio. KBLA, 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA AM. 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary, and this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it! Our listeners love us, and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. It's like me. Ooh, KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive. KBLA.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least likely to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black.
Keep following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Become the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, y'all to give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need.
Hey! I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Fat Meat Fridays with Dr. Ted Williams. And in the next hour, our regular host, Gina Towns, our executive producer and the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Hey, you know, Ted, during the break, I was reading an article in Los Angeles Times where feds have now charged Southern California medical workers with interfering with ICE raids. Now, check this out. These brown brothers and sisters were cutting grass, shaving bushes, cutting trees, and they ran into a medical facility seeking to avoid ICE. And now the medical workers are being charged with interfering with ICE. Now, I'm sure we can give this example across the country, not just in Southern California, but wherever these raids are taking place. And somehow innocent victims whose doors may be open to the idea that humanity is calling, knocking on their door and suffering, that they could very well end up with a federal charge and a felony. Your thoughts about the continuing oppressive approaches of the Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement Agency and their political use in these major municipalities across the country?
This has been one of the most disturbing and disgusting uses of the government's force that I have ever seen in really American history. And America has a very sordid history when it comes to the use of the government to enforce laws that are unjust. I was just reading about a pastor of three, and father of three, who was sent to Alligator Alcatraz, as they call it, for overstaying his visa half a century, about 20 years ago. And when I look at this idea that they are trumpeting, if you will, okay, that we are going to ultimately just be going after criminals. We're going to make America safe again by going after those who are trying to engage in crime. This is not the reality of the people that they are deporting. This is not an issue of public safety. This is not an issue of trying to make sure that people abide by the laws. This is truly an issue of xenophobia. This is truly an issue of fomenting fear. This is truly an issue of really throwing red meat at his base. And I have to tell you, my brother, as you understand this, our struggles are connected and united. One of Trump's close advisors mentioned just a few weeks ago that maybe we ought to send 65 million people to Alligator Alcatraz. Well, the numbers that they're, 650 million people. The numbers that they used were the exact numbers of the number of Latino people who were in the city, or in the country. And when they talk about this, they're not talking about just people who are posing a threat to the country. This is an attack on Black and brown folks. This is an attack on people who they see as weak, people who they want to exploit through the economy, but outside of that, really have no use for. And let me say this again, my brother, and we understand economics very well. If there was not a demand for this labor coming across the border, if there were not people that look like Donald Trump and his circle hiring these folks who are coming across the border, they would not be here. So it is easy to beat up on and bully those who cannot fight back, who have no wealth, oftentimes struggle with the language, have no connections. It's easy to beat up on them to make your base satisfied. But if we're really serious about this immigration issue, let's go prosecute the corporations that are hiring these folks who are coming across the border. Let's prosecute the wealthy people who are doing that. And you and I both know that's not going to happen.
I was reading an article maybe 2 weeks ago where Kristi Noem, I think it was, the head of intelligence or Homeland Security, whatever it is, and when asked the question about the shortage of agricultural workers that could be the result of these ICE raids, she said, well, there'll be plenty of people available who presently receive Medicaid benefits. And that if we can get these people to work in the fields, they will have earned their benefits.
These people are, in this administration, have to be, with all due respect to my fellow human beings, the most ignorant, unserious, race-baiting, xenophobic, fearful people that you could possibly have running a government. They have no idea what they're doing. And I'm going to mention, because I meant to say this earlier, if they were serious again about this, why have we not seen Europeans who've overstayed their visa in these ICE raids? Why are we not going after folks from Eastern Europe who, there are thousands upon thousands of them here who are here illegally? Why have we not seen this? Because this is not serious. Just as I was saying about, and I don't want to move off of this, but if you want, whatever, this distraction question, how Trump is going after the Washington Commanders right now because he's trying to continue to distract. All of this is a distraction, and anything people are stupid. Well, unfortunately, right, the American people, at least part of the American people, have proven their level of ignorance to even believe this mess. Thankfully, there, I believe, is at least half of the country that can see this for what it is. And that half has got to get out and vote in these midterms to make sure that we can really take this country back.
Do you think that's translating into midterms? The polling suggests that Democrats are not the beneficiaries of what's going on right now.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And, as you know as well from having run for office, it will all be about the turnout. And it's all going to be about who the actual candidates are. The Democrats are not very popular, in all honesty. I mean, in many ways, their messaging in this last election was, hey, we're not Donald Trump. Now, for people like me, that was enough, right? Because I would have voted for Mickey Mouse over Donald Trump in this last election or any other election. The Democrats have to galvanize the folks to see and understand that they are the solution. They've got to come out with bold policies like our brother Zohran Mamdani in New York City and go for what the people actually want in a very progressive way and not be afraid, as the Democrats have tried to play safe over the years and put forth moderate candidates who are really not pushing for the working class in that way. I think if we can do that, I think if we can have those kinds of candidates, I think the Democrats will be just fine. But I do understand your polling numbers, and those are a little frightening because ultimately what people will probably do in that case is not vote for anyone. And that doesn't do us any good.
I'm going to opine for just about 45 seconds before we come forward because we're heading to our next break. And I'm being told now that I cannot opine. This is KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Ted Williams will be our guest.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers, and sometimes it's an overworked accountant. who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes, we're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to KBLA 1580 and the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, where my very special guest is none other than Dr. Ted Williams. Dr. Ted Williams is an actor, a professor, a thinker, a theologian, a minister, and just an overwhelmingly well-rounded person whose mind, from my perspective, deserves a much higher stage than the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep your mind way out there. Dr. Williams, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. This means a lot.
Doc, let me ask you this question. Back to these Democrats for a minute. I just don't hear a message coming from the Democrats that say or even suggest that if they were able to regain control of Congress or regain control of the White House, that these ICE raids are going to stop. I just don't hear that. I don't see a proposal for a new Department of Education, the jump starting of United States Agency for International Development, everything that he's run through. I just don't see Democratic leadership saying that we are running to restore that which has been taken from the American people. I just don't see it happening. Now, could that have anything to do with it? That Democrats might allow Republicans to establish a new normal that they themselves don't have the courage to correct. Let me say that clearly. I'm losing my voice saying it. Correct. Help me, Dr. Williams.
Yes, brother. So, I'm going to I'll give them a criticism, but let me give them the benefit of the doubt for one moment first here. I would say that, after reading Project 2025 and going through that and understanding kind of the onslaught of stuff that they are trying to put forward, it is a bit overwhelming. And I think what's happening is it's almost like, people are playing whack-a-mole with all of the various things that are coming up. And you run over here and you deal with this issue. And then Trump's doing something else today. And then it's like boom, 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 boom. And that's what's going on. And so to be fair, the Democrats are running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Now, they do need to put forth a different vision. But I'm going to say this, my brother, you know this very well. I am concerned about the lack of progressive vision in the Democratic Party. I love our brother Barack, but the truth is that before Trump was deporting people, Barack Obama was deporting a lot of people. In fact, under the Obama administration, they deported more people than they did under the first Trump administration. And so it's not that the Democrats are anti-deportation. Democrats are not necessarily anti-guns in that way. We haven't really pushed forth any progressive legislation in that way either. Democrats have not gone forward on very controversial economic plans like reparations or universal income, universal basic income, those kinds of policies that are extremely progressive, that are extremely different. And I would suggest that if they don't pull, it's like a tug of war game. You got to pull all the way to the other side to get everybody even back to the middle at this point. And it's all about leadership. We have seen this historically. Presidents change the nation. We realize that FDR galvanized poor folks, got them into the Democratic Party. The African-American community got behind the Democratic Party heavily under LBJ and JFK. Donald Trump has changed the Republican Party. Nixon and his Southern strategy shifted the Republican Party. And so leadership, the right leaders, this is why this presidential candidate, this next one we pick, is going to be very important. And this is why it's very important who we pick for Congress, because we cannot have people who are willing to compromise themselves just to get elected. We have to have radical vision.
Towards radical vision, the movement against diversity, equity, and inclusion is now working its way over to something as fundamental and as crucial as the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Texas is now suggesting that they are willing to redraw 4 congressional districts, which would have a ripple effect across the entire state, changing the makeup of every congressional delegation or member in the state of Texas, under the argument that these districts, which were historically drawn to give African Americans specifically, but minorities in particular, an equal opportunity of getting elected to Congress, so that Congress may be desegregated, as an institution. And then the state of California is now responding by saying, if Texas engages in a mid-decade redistricting scheme, that they too will engage in a mid-decade scheme to offset whatever losses could occur from redistricting in Texas. Now, between Democrats and Republicans over all 50 of the states, it means changing the lines that could lead to, like First Reconstruction, 0 blacks in Congress by the turn of the century.
You know, I am number one angry, number one too heartbroken, but number 3, I understand where we are in history. And many of us used to look back at your father's generation and the work that was done in the 60s and say, man, if I were alive during that time, what would I have done? Right? I would have done X, Y, and Z. Well, we're alive during that time. Let me remind us, though, that this attack on the Voting Rights Act really was emboldened, calcified, moved forward, empowered by the 2013 Shelby v. Holder case, which really moved us backwards under the idea of removing this preclearance for states that had shown that they were in violation of the civil rights laws. So Trump has set himself up, the Republicans have, even really prior to Trump, to roll us back, to make America whatever they want it to be again. And so I'm actually not surprised by this. I am grateful. I'm grateful for states like California. I'm grateful for states like Illinois. I'm grateful for states like New York, who have said that we will use our power to stand against this. We will not let this happen silently. But there are far too many states that use gerrymandering to draw districts anyway. And so maybe this will expose the rest of the country that has drawn out our participation within the political process. This is horrific. It is disturbing. It is an insult to Malcolm X and Medgar Evers and Dr. King and the work of your father and the work of all of the civil rights leaders. But I tell you, brother, if this does not wake people up, I do not know what will. And in that way, as someone who is engaged in educating young people around these questions, I am excited to let them know that they must be involved and to ignite them. And I'm hopeful and prayerful that they will.
Ted, we have about 4 minutes before the break. You mentioned the young people. When you share these issues with them, are they ignited? Do they understand and comprehend the gravity of what is taking place? I'm going to ask you to share with us that thought, but also in the context of hopefully some hopefulness that there is some bright light by this generation and their willingness to stand up like John Lewis did.
You know, what I love about younger people is their impatience. They don't understand compromise in politics. They don't understand why things don't change. They don't understand why certain people are in positions and how that works. They don't understand that and don't necessarily care. The biggest challenge that I see currently is helping them to understand their power, their sense of power, that they truly have power, that we understand Dr. King was 26 when he led the Montgomery bus boycott. We understand that all great movements have really come from young people. And so they have the power and the technology to do things that generations before us never could. The real challenge, I think, that has existed, number one, is this power issue, but also, you know, comfort is a very dangerous thing, my brother. And the more comfortable we are as Americans, the less we feel like we ought to do something, particularly for other people. There are two things that are most missing in our society: empathy and critical thinking. The idea that even if I'm comfortable, that I need to move so my brother would be okay, who's in discomfort, suffering discomfort. That is the empathy piece. The other side is the critical thinking to understand why we're in the position that we're in. So if we can really focus on that, and that's what I do with my young people, and many educators across the country are doing that, I'm hopeful about what they can do, because they're not waiting, man. Those that get ignited, those that get quote unquote woke, are some dangerous, phenomenal people and moving it. We got to get more of our young people in that space.
I'm glad. I think I saw some of that activity in the Mamdani campaign.
Yes.
I think we saw it in the leadership of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Miss Jasmine Crockett, right? I mean, we see it in the Justins down in Tennessee when they stood up to the state legislature over gun control. And so there are these shining examples of young people saying enough is enough. I don't think there's enough of them. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see the kind of activism that led Julian Bond and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and others to engage in a civil protest that changed the course of American history and the world. I'd love to see more of that. What it takes to get us there, I'm not so sure. Not so sure. But excited about the prospects that we have younger legs, newer legs, who are willing to fight for what is right. I do understand in this moment that Dr. Ted Williams is going to be joining us in the first segment of Fat Meat Fridays on Reflectivity with our executive producer, Gina Towns. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., more with Ted Williams, and we're bringing forward Gina Towns on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is pushing back on the Department of Justice lawsuit over New York City's sanctuary policies.
We should not harm innocent migrants and asylum seekers and undocumented people in the city.
He says he supports protecting migrants, but wants the city council to reconsider parts of the law, especially when it comes to violent offenders. A fifth woman is accusing Smokey Robinson of sexual battery, according to TMZ. The 85-year-old Motown legend is already facing a $50 million lawsuit from 4 women. His attorney says more claims are no surprise and part of being a celebrity. And the Department of Justice is launching a strike force to investigate Obama-era officials over the 2016 election. The White House accuses Obama of trying to sabotage President Trump, while Obama's team calls the claims outrageous and a distraction. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Venus Williams' inspirational run at the D.C. Open in Washington, D.C. came to an end Thursday night. The 45-year-old Compton native lost in the second round in straight sets to Magdalena Frech of Poland. Venus lost 6-2 and 6-2. The crowd gave Venus a standing ovation after Freck scored the final point. The 7-time Grand Slam champion was playing in her first tournament since March of 2024. Venus accepted a wildcard invitation to play at the Cincinnati Open, which begins August 5th. When Venus beat Peyton Stearns Tuesday in the first round of the DC Open, she became the second oldest woman to win a singles match. The LA Sparks have their first 4-game winning streak in the WNBA in 2 years. They beat the Connecticut Sun 101-86, 30 points and 6 assists for Sparks guard Kelsey Plum. The Sparks are in New York Saturday to play the Liberty, the defending WNBA champs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, we call it Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and our very special guest is Gina Towns. Gina is the president and CEO of 519 Productions and the executive producer and director of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. A graduate of Hampton University with a degree in mass communications, arts, and journalism, Gina also earned her master's in theology and social justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. She is the co-producer of the Emmy Award-nominated documentary Hampton University, One of the Wonders of the World, and as the writer and performer, her single Yes hit number 26 with a bullet on Billboard's charts. She produced and directed a live broadcast on An Afternoon with Dr. Louis Sullivan, MD, and influenced a rewrite of the opening scene of the position of Morehouse School of Medicine's brand while directing communications, logistics, and location management of the HBO film, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, hello, Jesse Jackson Jr., and happy Friday. Fat Meat Friday, yes it is.
Ted is our very special guest in this hour. Ted Williams. Ted, Gina's here.
Hey, what's up, Gina? How are you? I love hearing love hearing your extensive background and bio. It's always cool to listen and hear of all three of us, the multifaceted nature of our life experiences and careers. It's
Absolutely.
Really cool.
Always my pleasure to be with you, around you, and our vicarious common experiences as
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely.
Gina, we were talking with Ted just before the break
Yes,
about DEI. We were talking about the Voting Rights Act of 1965. We've been talking about Epstein. We've been talking about the absence of an alternative message and whether there's a message at all from the Democratic Party that in the midterms could prove as a kind of finger in the dike to what has been taking place in Washington, D.C. Gina, your thoughts?
Well, thank you for that question. I have reflected on all of what we've talked about. And of course, that is the reason why we do Fat Meat Friday, so we can trim away the fat and have a lean piece of meat to chew on for the rest of the week. And we are we're active in our reflection on the things that we talked about. Now, to your question, This wasn't on this week, but I am reminded in this moment when our guest John was on a couple of months ago, and he said sometimes it's not the message. Sometimes you can have the best message, but you don't have the right messenger. And that may be some of what the Democratic Party is facing in needing new faces in other places. And that goes to what Ted was talking about when you asked him about his students and, how do they think about what's going on? And I think about my own children and what their attitudes are about the political process. And so you just want to keep them engaged and have them not throw up their hands and disengage or abstain. This is the system in which you have to change.
Ted, we've heard often from Ossie Davis and others. It's not the rap, it's the map. It's not the man, it's the plan. My dad said, well, plans don't just kind of show up without somebody carrying them. So the man does matter. The woman does matter to the articulation of a vision. Dr. King is not on an island unto himself. There are lots of people offering leadership during this period, but he emerges as a clear voice, a clarion call.
Yeah.
Man, and
yeah, the idea of charisma, right, is actually a spiritual gift. And this actually, that word actually comes out of a Greek word, a Greek term that is something that is powerful. And people have charisma and are able to use it for good or for evil. We need charisma, charismatic leadership. We need a plan, solid plan. We need public policy. But even beyond all of that, we need people with hearts, right? We need leadership that has a heart for the people. And there are people out there like that. Now, whether they, through our unfortunately broken political process, get what I call the 3 M's of politics, the money, media, and mobilization, to get themselves in a position to have authority and leadership, that's a whole nother question. But those of us that know better have to empower folks like that to do the work that needs to be done. Because ultimately, our democracy really is dependent upon us finding folks who can provide an alternate vision to the fascism, the division, and the racism that we see right now.
Gina?
Thank you for that, because one of the things that I took a note on while you were talking, and it came up several times, it came up on Wednesday with Atiba Madian, when he talked about the fact that we have to be able to look in the mirror and deal with ourselves first. And from there comes our vision. And from vision comes hope. And of course, we know where the people have no vision, they perish because they are without hope. But we have to start with a sense of self-love and community love for our neighbor. And I think that's part of what you have to hear in the message as well.
Ted?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. This is why Malcolm X said that we don't have the luxury of fight on any one front. We must fight on all fronts in the battle for social justice and for civil rights. And I think this is why the conversation that we're having is so critical, because at the end of the day, as the 3 of us have talked about in the past, these are moral questions. Budgets are moral documents. How we treat children are moral questions. How we treat the elderly, those are moral questions. How we treat people who are marginalized are moral questions. And if you don't have the moral compass to engage in this, then leadership is not for you. One of the most disheartening parts of our current president's work in this administration is that I think, as I've said to you before, the 2 things that are most lacking in our society, most needed, are empathy and critical thinking. I don't think he shows any of them. I don't think he shows empathy for people who are not like him. I don't think he has critical thinking to even understand what is happening beyond what is on the surface. And so for me, I am just excited about finding new leaders, new spaces, invigorating leaders who've been around. But if I've ever seen a need for leadership in this country, now is the time.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns and our very special guest, Dr. Ted Williams, when we come forward.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my two sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-687-7979. That's 800-687-7979. 800-687-7979.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online.
Uh-huh.
I read that Black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older, like you, are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
Visit WeTalkWeRise.com to learn more. Brought to you by Pfizer.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, our weekly series presents Fat Meat Fridays and Reflectivity with our special guest, Gina A. Towns, and our very special guest, because Gina is a regular host on our program, Dr. Ted Williams. Dr. Williams, welcome forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
I can't believe it's Friday. I can't believe it. I feel like I should put on Johnny Kemp.
I don't know. Did you just get paid? That's the question.
I did not. That's the problem. That's the problem. I want to pitch this over to Gina. Gina really gives some idea to this idea of looking in the mirror. This Michael Jackson song, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. And on reflectivity, it gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves in the mirror and raise some critical questions. Gina?
Yeah, because when we look in the mirror, and that Michael had plenty of prolific songs, but among them, I think that is the most reflective, the most gut heavy song. Because people had to wonder, is Michael looking in the mirror at himself and all of the transformation that he went through physically that we could see. And certainly there had to be a lot of emotional transformation in the things that he endured on a public stage all around the world. But I was thinking about how, we are very comfortable. And Ted talked about this. And that was one of the big things when I was in the full-time ministry that we always got a whooping about was comfort. And the fact is, if you're going to follow Jesus, is there anything that was comfortable about his existence or his life? So there requires a transformation. It requires us to look in the mirror. It requires us to teach our children to look in the mirror. It requires us to discipline them with love. It not just physical. It means taking the time to sit down to them. And so I appreciate you being, in the classroom, Ted, and working with young minds and helping to shape them in their thoughts, because you can't have transformative justice if you don't have a community and a nation that continues to transform. And that is the reason why there's an amendment process, because the founders made sure, or the framers made sure, that as we progressed as a nation chronologically and theologically, that we would be able to govern ourselves according to what the transformation is.
Yeah, and I would say, speaking of transformation in education, that is one of the things that is most concerning about where we are today in the defunding of education, shifting our priorities, looking to a society that, Thomas Jefferson, I don't quote him often. I am not a big fan, but I will say that one of the original visions of education, public education, was to create quality citizens who understood democracy, understood how to vote, understood their place in the society. And we really, with the defunding of civics programs, we're really losing that. AI has hit the classroom space, making it so that some fundamental skills that people would live in their work and they would learn are not necessarily needed as much. And so the world is shifting, the goal of education is shifting. But when it comes to vocational education, although these things are changing, this idea of civics does not change. And if you think about this, if you defund education across the board, you have a much easier time in manipulating people, in having a populace that does not know what the heck they're voting for, doesn't understand who their congressman is, doesn't understand the three branches of government, doesn't understand their rights in a democratic society. That, I believe, is ultimately kind of where this thing is heading. I don't quote Jefferson often, I don't quote Hitler often, but Hitler said that how fortunate it is for leaders when men don't think. When you don't have a thinking populace, it is the greatest thing in the world for narcissistic fascist leaders like the ones I believe that we're seeing today.
I'm so glad you said that, because the whole idea, and that's the attack on the universities right off the bat.
So I have a question for Gina and for Dr. Williams. I was reading an article by Dr. Lawrence Ware. It's in The Root, in the opinion section. It says, Professor explains why Black Gen Xers, millennials, are what's wrong with Black America. The article reads, it's easy to blame President Donald Trump for like 82% of contemporary Black America's ills. But is he really the one to blame here? Are members of Generation X and millennials unknowingly dismantling Black America? Heavy question. So let's step back for a second. We need definitions. Gen X are born between 1965 and 1980. Now millennials are born between the early 1980s and the mid 1990s. There's disagreement about the exact year, so let's just say 1981 to 1996. Now here's the issue. The history of Black people in America is one where the previous generation paved the way for the younger one. The last generation of slaves toiled and fought so that their kids could prosper. The same is true for people that generation derisively called the boomers. So what you want about their inability to drive, homophobia, and dated taste in music, Black folks who are boomers and members of the greatest generation laid the foundation for the comfortable life Americans enjoy today. These are the ones who fought in World War I and World War II. But what have we done, millennials and Gen Xers? Let's talk about it. Let's take our time and talk about it. The article says the majority of us, first, are politically inactive. Number two, we live comfortably in McMansions. Number three, Black boys are out here clamoring for exotic or outright white girls. Black America is in a precarious position. Older generations understood something that many of us have forgotten. We are not white people. It may be 2025, but we must fight people so that the next generation of Black people will have it better than we had it. Gen X and millennial Black folks, one question. Are we the problem? Gina, come with it now.
So I am not willing to put on the shoulders and the back of millennials and Gen X to say that you're the problem, because America is a melting pot. And in that pot have also been things, and I put this comment in the chat during Atiba's show, because that's that reflective conversation, man in the mirror conversation, that we need to come back to faith. We need to come back to who we are. We need to pull our pants up. We need to do a lot of things. A lot of people need to do a lot of things, but there are also things that have not been done for us. And then there have been things throughout the past 60 years that have been done to us. And so we've been in somewhat of a Cold War as we look at education that has not been equal high quality, healthcare that is not of equal high quality. And then we see districts that are gerrymandered as far as voting. It has become more and more difficult for people to vote. And so just like Ted said, if you are going to take away social studies and civics, you have to have a teacher in the classroom and parents at home who are willing to fill the gap on the things that have happened. Now, if I go from president to president and talk about the things that happened during their presidencies in the Black community, I can go to crack cocaine. And I can, and this starts way back. So Project 2025 is not really, a new thing. It has been in development for a long time, but I'll stop right there and let somebody jump in on that.
Ted?
Yeah, I'll say this. I am a bona fide Gen Xer, born right in the middle of that description, and grew up in the 80s and 90s. And let me say this. This is what happened to us, I believe. Number one, we were the beneficiaries of the work that our parents did to move us into these integrated communities. We grew up in diversity where our parents did not. And what we thought was that when we sang the song, "We Shall Overcome," we thought we had overcome already. It wasn't until, and I can tell you, as I think about my childhood and watching the Hulk Hogans of the world and the Christopher Reeves and Superman of the world, and then of course Jordan and Walter Payton for me, and Michael Jackson and Prince and people like that, there was a lot of diversity in terms of popular culture in the 80s. And so we thought that we had gotten somewhere. We had the Cosby Show and Different Strokes and all these shows that showed Black folks living well. And then Rodney King happened. And I'm going to say that Rodney King, Trayvon Martin, and George Floyd were the three most significant figures in recent Black history for our generation, because they woke us up. And they helped us to understand every one of these cases, that though we may have lived in the suburbs, though our parents had sent us to good schools, though we had decent clothing. I grew up, my dad was a car dealer, and we would belong to a country club and all of these things. And I remember having a conversation with him at one point about affirmative action. I put this in my production 1619 that I do. This conversation, I said, "Dad, we don't even need affirmative action. We're doing okay." And he said, "Boy, no, I'm doing okay. You ain't got nothing." That's how he said it. You better hope somebody give you some affirmative action or something, so that your Black buck can get a job in this society, And so it was a wake up call for me. George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Rodney King told the world that though Black folks might be excelling in popular culture, that in America, when it comes to the tools and force of the American government, we still are treated as second-class citizens. And in that way, I hope, not that I ever want to see these things again, but I hope that we don't lose the lessons and lose ourselves in the pursuit of the almighty dollar in America, because ultimately I think we are deserved. It's a disservice to us if we do.
So I have a slightly different take, and it's not that much of a different take, but it's a different take, right? I think that first, theological. Coming out of slavery, the Israelites were commanded to remember this day. It presented itself in the form of the Seder and the Passover. The Seder dinner, but the Passover period of how we passed over from Egyptian captivity to freedom. For African Americans, while the process of let my people go may not be our process, the process by which Moses tried to appeal to Pharaoh may not be our process. Our process is a constitutional process. I share it with my Jewish friends all the time. Same God. The God of the Bible is the same God that didn't like slavery there. They don't like slavery here, right? But our process is not the Egyptian process or the Pharaonic process. It is the process by which we leave constitutional slavery, slavery of, for, and by the people. It's a more difficult process, I think, than talking to one Pharaoh, talking to every single American state by state, that you need to amend the Constitution to end a process and a system that is outside of the grace of God. So I want to just kind of make that point. But the Seder experience that Jewish people go through every year, where they reflect upon what it meant to eat bitter herbs and to go through this process, is recited every year for 3,000 years. And so when I hear about a Generation X or millennials, whatever generation that is we've given a label to, where they know not the process, our Seder experience, our Passover experience, and it's something way back over there that God had nothing to do with, and it's, of course, the same God that they read about in the Bible, but somehow God's concerned about the Bible story, but not concerned about our story, which is a huge leap. It just seems to me, Ted, that it is our fault that we do not have traditions that make our story in our lives, which may be the only thing that unites us as a people, our story, that we have these we can't even make up our mind what the hell we're supposed to do on Juneteenth. I'm ashamed of Juneteenth. I'm mad as hell on Juneteenth. And they barbecuing, they drinking, they making babies over there. Come on now. We got 2 more years of slavery for free. Shouldn't we be mad? Can we at least be mad on Juneteenth?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Talk
sir.
to me, Gina. Come on, Gina.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, I would say that people really didn't even understand what Juneteenth was. The difference between watch night and, Juneteenth, as you said, because the slaves who actually found out in Texas had a parade and a party because they finally found out, that sort of permeated the community as far as, how many, 100 years later. And so we haven't really taught that correctly. And I can't say, exactly whose fault that is, but it has to be with us. And I think that's the point that you're making, is that we haven't painted things over our thresholds, over our doorpost, to make sure that our children, knew their history if they weren't going to get it at school. But I also think when we come back, I want to discuss desegregation and community. And I think those are some very important points, because if they could rebuild Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but not Watts and Detroit, then, we have a whole nother conversation we have to have in this country.
All part of the same story for me. KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Reflectivity and Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with VIN News Now. A black man accused of lewd acts in Burbank, California is back in jail. Khalees Crowder, a registered sex offender, was arrested Tuesday after allegedly sniffing women at a Nordstrom Rack and Walmart.
I didn't realize he was so close to me until I heard his jewelry or something. He sounded extremely close to me, so that's when I turned around and noticed that he was right under me.
He's been arrested for similar behavior before, including a 2023 incident in Glendale. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is headlining a Gen Z-led Democratic summit in D.C., hosted by Voters of Tomorrow. With youth support down 24% since 2020, Democrats hope to reconnect. And Black artist Amy Sherrill is canceling her upcoming Smithsonian showcase after learning a portrait of a transgender person might be removed. Known for painting Michelle Obama's official portrait, Sherrill's exhibit was set for September. Get VIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Put USC coach Lincoln Riley at the top of the list for football coaches facing the most pressure this season. USC Nation is expecting a lot from Riley. This is Riley's fourth season at USC, but he has failed to get the Trojans into the college football playoffs. USC hasn't made the playoffs since the NCAA implemented a playoff system in 2014. The Trojans were 6-6 last season, including a 4-5 finish in their first year of the Big Ten Conference. They were 7-5 in 2023. Both of those seasons resulted in low-level bowl wins. The Trojans have only one major bowl victory in the past 16 years, and they have not won a national championship since 2004. USC Nation was expecting Riley to restore the great tradition of USC football when he was hired in 2022 for $10 million a year. So far, Riley has not done that. He may have only one more year to get it done. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, where on Friday we have reflectivity and fat meat. And Ted, just before the break, our very special guest is Ted Williams. He's an author. He is a doctor. He is a teacher, a philosopher, more degrees than we care to name. But I really want to get to this point right here, Dr. Williams, and that's this. We don't agree on nothing. We don't agree that Thanksgiving is about our history. It's not about Native Americans. It's about the third Thursday in November that Abraham Lincoln set aside because the North was winning the war against the Confederacy. We don't agree that December 31st isn't about firecrackers and fireworks. It's about watch night and our freedom. We don't agree that January 1st, New Year's Day, is about the effective date of the Emancipation Proclamation in the states that we were freed. We don't agree that the first Memorial Day was about us when Black people walked around Union graves for the first time, honoring the men who set us free. And we don't even agree about Labor Day. Now, Labor Day, as in like free slaves, like free labor versus slave labor. We turned Labor Day into all about the unions. But what about free labor versus slave labor? I mean, slave labor versus, labor in the North, industrial labor. We don't agree on our Seder story because the Seder story and our Passover is right there in front of us every single day. Reverend Deacon Dr. Williams, help me navigate this story.
So I love to liken our story to the biblical story of Joseph. And we understand Joseph's story was one of unjust persecution. He ultimately was sold into slavery by his brothers. He was falsely accused, went to prison. But ultimately, he ends up in a position where he is able to provide grace to an entire community because of the position of authority that he has found himself in. So for African Americans, the glass is really not just half empty, but half full. On the one hand, we have been treated in horrific ways throughout this country that we are still dealing with and will be dealing with potentially for generations. But on the other hand, we have been given unique access to an empire that we have utilized in ways that have not really pushed our progress substantially. The African American community, if you think about it, is the envy of the world culturally. Our people dominate the music and entertainment really across the world, fashion trends. And yet we've taken that and not moved towards our own self-empowerment in that way. I, like you, brother, get a little bit upset. I told somebody this year, no joke, I'm not kidding. I told somebody exactly this year, I got one more Juneteenth in me. I got one more Juneteenth in me, brother. Then I'm going radical.
You're gonna do some Frederick Douglass on them about
Bro, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, all these parties and barbecue. I'm like, do y'all even know what are we celebrating? What are we doing? Why are we not organizing? And so, the people's it's time to celebrate. I'm cool. I'll celebrate with you. I'm gonna give you one more year. But I'm gonna tell you after that, brother. If it's on, man. If we're not, I don't want to hear about a Juneteenth barbecue. I want to hear about a Juneteenth strategy session. I don't want to hear about a Juneteenth party. I want to hear about Juneteenth protests. You know what I mean?
Free State of Jones. Free State of Jones.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying, man, because here we are celebrating a freedom that we don't even have. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution still says that slavery is legal in the United States of America. African Americans still have one tenth the wealth of our European American counterparts. We find ourselves last on every socioeconomic scale in this country, every measurement about the health and quality of life we are between us and the indigenous dead last. Now, let me say this very clearly. I don't blame us for that completely.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't put ourselves in that position. But last time I checked, they're not running to rescue us to get us out. And so we have an obligation to not only hold this government accountable for reparations. Reparative justice is what I love to call it, because reparations people get is so controversial. Let's talk about repairing what is broken. We can talk about slavery. We can talk about Jim Crow. We can talk about redlining. We can do that all right now. We don't have to go back 200 years. We can go back 20 years and start paying people for what the wrongs that were done by this government. So for me, that is what we ought to be dealing with on Juneteenth. That is what ought to constantly be in our minds and our spaces. And as you all mentioned, I'll close out here. As you mentioned, with the idea of the Jewish tradition of never forgetting, this idea that we would tell these stories to our children, our children's children, that were connected theologically, once again, which is why we have to have a theological base. That's why the Jewish people have such unity. We only have so much unity. Yeah, but there's a theological reason for that unity. We have to learn from that, and we've got to continue to fight our fight economically, educationally, and spiritually.
Carol Ann Elmore White is listening, Gina, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I want to turn your program back over to you, but I want to be crystal clear that I've also received several texts that Dr. Ted Williams is no longer invited to anyone's Juneteenth celebration.
No, one more year, please. One more year.
One more slab.
2026. Let me get a good plate before I protest. You know what I'm saying? And then 27, I'm on it.
Ted brought up what I want to get to, and it gets so touchy with people because people don't tell me about my faith. Don't tell me I need to believe, blah, blah, blah. But to Ted's point and to your point, Jesse, the Seder story, the Exodus story, our Exodus story is definitely different, but an Exodus story nonetheless. And so as we look at what girded down our community from the time that they got off the slave ships, and if it was Islam, great, let it be Islam. It can be Allah, it can be God, it can be Yeshua. I'm saying that there is a faith in a creator because we are without excuse because of creation itself, in acknowledging how to love God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves, even when someone else isn't doing it. So one of the underpinnings of our struggle was that we were a faith community. That is where we met. We looked out for each other, and parents were able to stop, a neighboring child from running through the yard and say, you need to stop running right now. And the child would do so. And so when we think about the things that have girded us, respect is one of those things. And that kind of takes us back to the man in the mirror conversation. And it's not that we want to, control what people are doing, but I believe we even talked about the fact that the founders, Ted brought it up, that Jefferson wanted there to be a commonality in how we trained people to be citizens in the United States. So, we have somewhere to go in that area right now. And how that then plays into government and our unity as a community is something that we have to really get under control.
Well, I would agree with you. Gina has left me about 30 seconds after the 45 to say that. Gina, she's telling me to wrap it up. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest on Reflectivity with Gina Towns is Dr. Ted Williams. When we come forward, our final segment.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, all over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580, where we are here Monday through Friday from 12 to 2 p.m. PST, 2 to 4 p.m. CST, and 3 to 5 p.m. EST. Gina, I want to tell you what a wonderful week I enjoyed on the program with Teresa Hord Owens, and of course at the top of the hour, Eric Krim.
Ernest.
Ernest Krim. Yes, Ernest Krim, my favorite millennial. Barbara Arnwine on the grind on Tuesdays. Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. Todd Urey, 1 foot in the pulpit, 1 foot in the courtroom. And with Johnny Mack, the World House, trying to put all of the pieces together of what's left. And of course, our first hour guests. And one of the outstanding first hour guests was the personal testimony of Angie Coleman Scott, who shared with us that she had lost her mother, and she walked us through her grief process. And just 72 hours after losing her mother, she showed us an incredible strength.
Absolutely.
Gina?
You know, and while you're at it, you know, I want to really thank people. And if you can, please go and download the podcast. Reverend Willie Gable.
He was something, wasn't he?
He's always something.
He was something else, wasn't he?
Absolutely. And then Atiba Madian was on Wednesday. And of course, Angie Coleman Scott, as you just said, was on yesterday. And of course, Ted being in the last hour was really just a phenomenal week. And I want to bring attention to your show with Johnny Mack as well. But I think he kind of alludes to this, the issue of pain. And Angie shared about grief. But the pain is a larger scope in which, if you think about pain, pain motivates you to do something. If you're feeling a little too comfortable, it is the pain from getting swatted on your behind as a child. When I said don't touch the hot stove and you want to do it anyway, not only have you burned yourself, but I have put some heat on your bottom. Joseph was in pain as he went through what he went through, alluding back to your conversation with Ted. And then, of course, in a famine, his brothers brought his father to him because they were in pain. And so pain is a great motivating factor. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful, but produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So, how is it that we shall get trained in this hour?
Jeannie, I was thinking about on this question of training, that when I listened to Atiba Madian this week, and he came back on the program with Dr. Yuri, that he really challenged us, right? He challenged us to think outside the box. He challenged us to understand that even though we may be losing things in this era, that we're going to ultimately, at least my take on it, is develop another muscle of resilience. And that muscle of resilience will create new methods of coping, new methods of dealing, and thinking about the ways in which the broader social edifice and structure is changing, that there's nothing we can do about it, and that we have to prepare ourselves for that adjustment. You call it pain. Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's personal, it's communal, it's broader than just being locked between the confines of one's own two ears, but to recognize that all of us are going to be experiencing in some way, shape, or form the same condition.
Absolutely. And so we talked about I believe it was you and Atiba that talked about the trials and the battles that we've been through. And what I find is that, let's take the assassinations of Malcolm, Martin, John, and Robert. And then you get into a new era where you are not going to physically assassinate people, but you want to assassinate their character because they seem to be a political threat, or you put them in positions where there's not equal justice for the same crime for one person or another. All of those things affect how we as a community, and I think, we as a world house, as, Johnny Mack talks about, I know that people see some of the injustice that's done, and you can choose a role of Pontius Pilate and not say anything, but it's still painful, because I think at the core, people do want to get along. And that's what you see with Gen X and Gen Z. That's why I'm not willing to, put blame, because they are really, I remember my daughter told me, she says, Mom, we're just going to wait till everybody dies off and then we'll all live together in perfect harmony. She didn't say it exactly like that, but that's what she meant, for people to get along and accept one another and have some sort of equity and equality.
God bless your daughter for feeling that way. I think my daughter, part of the same generation, feels the same way. But in perfect candor, Dr. King recognized that evil is a real force in the universe, and so did Dr. Todd Yuri on the program. He said, "Don't forget about evil in the universe." Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the time that I was speaking with Dr. Cornel West. He said, when he proofread one of my books, he said, "Jesse, this is a great book, but don't forget the cross." Now, you've got to come back to the cross. At some point in time, you've got to come back to the cross, because evil is real. Evil is persistent. Waiting for folks to die off does not change the fact that evil is organized. And so there must be a counterbalance to the organizing of evil with the organizing of love, with the organizing of good. It must be aggressive. It must be as forceful and as nonviolent as we can possibly make it, but it must counter evil with a positive force, and not just a kind of casual, well, we're just going to let time handle it and hope that the universe itself corrects itself That's just not going to happen.
I am so glad that you said that, because that's one of the notes that I took. I don't have it here, but I made note of how many people called it evil on our shows this week. How many people are calling it evil in mainstream media, for that matter. You've never heard the word evil used as much as you hear it right now. And I think that's a very important point to bring forward, because that is exactly what it is.
Evil is organized. It is persistent. It does not sleep. It does not yield. It tweets. It posts. It uploads. It creates memes. Evil is on the news. Evil is persistent. And so, you have to raise your voice. I'm trying to struggle with, I'm so angry sometimes that I have to channel my anger into, I'm going to register some people to vote. I'm going to take my anger and move it to voter registration. I mean, what else do I do? I'm not going to pick up a shovel. I'm not going to rob a store. I'm not going to, hurt a police officer or a public servant. I'm not going to go blow up a post office. No, I'm going to go register somebody to vote, because it is what is available to me to address evil in my time and space, which means, and this is the difficult part, I have to come into contact with humanity. I have to come into contact with someone who's uninspired. I've got to come into contact with people. And I think, Gina, that's one of the great challenges. Gina, we have about 3 minutes to the top of our show and the end of our week. Why don't you close us out on a word of hope?
I think that that's where we saw Dr. King come to his conclusion. It is, the only thing that does conquer evil. Love trumps hate every time. And we are now in a situation where I think fear has come into the equation, because fear facilitates evil. It tries to thwart love. But I will tell you that for the person who is right next to you, the person that's in your community, for the students who are in your school, for the people who are in your church community, we can really even work together on social media, because sometimes we have engaged and we still engage in really mean things online, and being more mindful about how people feel and how we can hurt one another toward love is where we have to go.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to Reflectivity with our very special guest, Gina Towns. We can't thank Dr. Ted Williams enough for spending the better part of almost 2 hours with us on this Friday. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Angie Coleman Scott, whom I know is still grieving, who is also the mother of our chief engineer, Torrance Scott, and the grandmother of Jasmine, who is filling in for Torrance today. We're so grateful for you and your family. We're so grateful that you guys have hung in there throughout this week and throughout this period and shared your grief with our listening audience. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Until next week, we'll see you then.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.